Hi everybody, it's John back with another model inbox review. I've got an interesting one for you today because yes, we're looking at another Ju-87 Stuka. Yes, I have done one recently, but a lot of the information that you would probably need to know if you needed to do a different version from the options and costs, a lot of the information on any of the options is available on the previous video I did of the Airfix 1957 release of the Ju-87B Stuka. So you might, if you wanted to find out information about the various different variants, options and cost wise, there are photographs on that video prior to the boxing history going in that explain the different variants and what was going on with the different variants, and it's quite an interesting section of the video. This picture we're looking at here is an incredibly famous picture. It's probably the most highly utilised picture of a Stuka in operational service in World War II, used in the media. It is actually of a Junkers Ju-87B1 operating in the Polish campaign, and the colours for this kit are light blue undersides with all over one tone green camo pattern. There's no splinter camo on this particular aircraft. And also you can tell it's a B1 because it has large crosses on the undersides of the wings. When the B2 originally came out, which would have been it would have been late in the French campaign, those crosses were made marginally smaller. And by the time the aircraft entered service for the Battle of Britain, they were a lot smaller. So yeah, anyway, which kit are we doing an inbox review on for the Junkers Ju-87? Well, before I go into the actual kit, I'll tell you which the actual kit is when the photograph comes up. But the kit is actually a Revell original release of the Ju-87, and the kit is actually based on this one, but it isn't this kit. The reason why I'm saying it's based on this kit is because about 90% of this model is actually in the other kit as well, and I'll explain a little bit about that when we get to the first image of the kit I'm actually doing. The original release, Revell's Junkers Ju-87 D5/G2, was released in 1975, and it came in two different variants. In early 1975 it was released as a standard kit, and in late 1975, I think around about October, it was released with a competition on it. So basically the difference between the two 75 releases is that the early one doesn't have this label on it here, and the late one does, because the late one incorporated a competition on it to win flying lessons in a Cessna 150. 75 flying lessons, I think there was an award of one flying lesson for each win. And then you also had runner-up prizes of Harley Davidson motorcycles. Again, I'm not sure whether it was just like a ride day or whether you actually won the bike. But a Harley Davidson motorcycle, I think I would have preferred to have had that. Interesting that you can get two variants in this particular kit, a D5, which is a standard bomber, and a G2, which was a tank buster arm with these 40mm underwing slung cannons. Not sure on the actual outload on these cannons, but I do believe it could have been as many as 12 rounds per pod. A lot of people have speculated about this, saying it might have been less than 5, but I think it was about 12 rounds per pod. And these cannons are actually the same size as the Bofor anti-aircraft guns, but they had armoured piercing rounds to slice through armour of tanks quite easily. But anyway, that's the 1975 releases. Also in 1975, a company called Revell Great Britain got a hold of this kit as well for sales in Great Britain. And the way you can tell the difference is the boxing has Ju-87G2 in red writing, which was, yeah, it was quite nice, wasn't it? Same image, same kit inside, everything was exactly the same, but this image was on the bottom of the box instead of the top. Interesting there. The kit we're actually doing an inbox review on It isn't this one. I don't know what this has come up for. Uh, oh yes, I do know what this has come up for. This is the 1976 release of the D5 G2, and this was another release dedicated for a particular cause. In America, they had a model builders club of America, and this kit was selected by the Model Builders Club of America as their, if you like, what we would call now a group build. And Revell released the kit. I think it was released under a special price for the children of the Builders Club, and it was released in around about late 1976. The kit we're actually doing an in-box review on is this one, and this is an interesting boxing because this is the original boxing produced by Revell in 1976, and it was the first time the B and R variant was released. The model is virtually the same as the D5 and G2, but it has got additional parts to turn it into a B or an R variant. It has a different canopy, a different engine cowling here, and different wingtips, but everything else about the kit is identical to the D5. Even the bomb loadout is identical. It does not have the parts to build the G2 tank buster though, and you can't build the D5 from this kit, but what you can do is build the Ju-87B, which was the standard bomber, or the R variant, and it gives you parts which incorporate underwing fuel tanks, because the R variant was basically just a wet wing racked version of the standard B variant to incorporate drop tanks to give the aircraft twice the range, which the Stuka really needed, especially in the Eastern Front and the North African campaign. It's also interesting to note that the B variant is the North African campaign one, and I'll explain a little bit about that when we get to the Gunf. And the R variant, the long range one, was actually the green covered camo pattern one. And also it's interesting that this green variant is one colour. It's not splinter camouflaged, which I think is correct, because a lot of the aircraft that went into the Eastern Front campaign in 1941 were just plain green with light blue undersides. They were not splinter camouflaged. But anyway, that's the standard Revell release in 1976, and also Revell of Great Britain released this kit in 1976 as well. It's exactly the same, and I do believe that this is the kit that I've got a version of. Everything on this box is identical to the one that I'm looking at here on the image, but that's same year, 76, Revell Great Britain. Then, in 1976, a company called Revell Kikola got a hold of the D5 G2 variant, and they sold this aircraft in Portugal and Spain because Kikola was a Portuguese agent for Revell, and they released this kit in 1976, the D5 and G2 variant, and they also released this kit in 1976 as well. And you can tell the Kikola offerings because they have lots and lots of Portuguese writing written all over them, or Spanish writing, depending on whether they were intended for the Spanish market or the Portuguese. But that's 76, same kit as the B&R. Then we go to 1979, and we've got another company here. This is Revell Congost. Revell Congost, I believe, is a Spanish outlet, and they, in a way of saying, they reversed the operation that Kikola did in 1979, and they also produced new camo patterns and decals for the D5 variant and the G2 variant. You can see here, instead of being like a weird camel coloured splinter camouflage from the original version, it was grey and grey with dark mottled camo patterns for the D5, and the G2 was, I think, similar camo pattern to the one that was released earlier. It was all green. Anyway, that was Revell Congost, and also in 1979 Revell New Zealand released exactly the same kit for the New Zealand and Australian market. And these boxings, I think, are quite interesting because they show you what the kit looks like built up. A nice touch there. 1979 goes through to 1980, and this is another company, this time for the South American American market, and you're looking at Revell Lodella. This is the original B and R variants. Lodella only ever released the B and R variants, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure. I think they only released these two variants, but we'll probably find out in the boxing history when I get to it. I've probably messed up there. Interesting there, $7.99. In 1980, this kit, $7.99 in dollars. Yeah, that might have been correct, but then it's been increased to $12.99 because it's probably been resold at a later date, probably in the mid-80s, late 80s maybe. 1980 goes through to 1981, and Revell Great Britain re-released this kit in a different style box. It had a white border around the outside, but basically it was exactly the same as the original kit that was released in 1976. Revell also released this kit in this style of boxing, but instead of having 1/72 scale written up here, it was took in black imagery here in 1/72 in different languages, same plastic model kit. 1981 there goes through to 1981 and the G2 and D5 variant release. This is by Revell. Exactly the same kit as you got before, but with the white border around. I think this was a type of box that Revell was releasing in the early 80s. I quite liked it, but the same image as before that you had in the early releases. 1981 again goes through to 1981, and you've got Revell Great Britain, who released this kit as well. This kit, interestingly enough, had Mav Stab written on the top, which suggests that it could possibly have been Revell German issue. But I think these kits were released by Revell of Great Britain a little bit prior to the Revell Germany setup, Revell Germany GmbH, which I think was set up in the mid-80s, wasn't it? 1981 there goes through to 1981, and again another release of Revell Lodella of the B and R variant of this kit. Nice image there. I quite like the decal option on that as well. That looks quite nice with that, like a snake logo on the side. 1981 goes through to 1981 for the D5 and G2. They did release the G2 and D5 Lodella there. That was 1981, same kit as before. By the way, Lodella sold models throughout the entirety of South America and Mexico, so you're looking at a lot of countries. Unfortunately, they were more into their football, so plastic model kits never really did that well in South America. 1981 there goes through to 1984, and we've got a new company on the side. This is a new release, but I'll lead you into the new company that comes up in a minute. 84, Revell released the J87B and R, but this was actually the G2 boxing. The B and R was released in a different style boxing, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this was, again, the white boxing label around the outside. It shows you the model made up. You can see the different parts. The canopy is very different. The wingtips are more rounded and longer. And also the cannon pods there. They're quite distinctive weaponry, aren't they? 1984 there for the G2. And then you also had 1984. And this was a French company called Revell Seji. Seji was a French agent for Revell that released a lot of Revell kits for them. This was the B and R variant, the kit I'm doing an inbox review on. This was released in 1984. Then in 1984, Seji also released the G2. This is exactly the same kit that you had from the original release from Revell. No differences there, but that was 1984 for Revell Seji from France. Then you've got the first interesting boxing. This is Revell's new blue box release, and this is the style of boxing that you get in this kit now. The thing is, the serial number on this kit, 4153, is not the serial number that's available now. Yet, believe it or not, this kit is available on general release by Revell right now. And you'll see the boxing that you'll get with that in a minute. This was 1993 when Revell went over to their blue boxing. The G2 and D5 variant of the Ju87, I don't think they released parts for the B and R after 1984. But yeah, we'll go into the next boxing. That's 93, and it goes through to 1993 when they did a gift set. This had two quite nice paints, some Revell glue there and a brush. This kit was only available in one colour green, even though the photograph is of splinter camouflage, which was an interesting touch there. Well done, Revell. That was a right mess up, wasn't it? 1993 goes through to 2002, and an interesting kit here. This was the last release of a Junkers Ju-87 B2 and R2. I do think you can still get this kit up to quite recently, but this model is not a Revell tooling. This model, I did an inbox review and build project on this kit a couple of years ago, and this kit is actually an Italeri tooling, and it's really nice. If you fancy a B2 or R2 kit, if it's marked Revell B2 and R2 Ju-87, it's the Revell reissue of the Italeri kit, and it's quite nice. That was 2002. Then you go into 2010, and this is a really interesting gift set, because the Icons of Aviation gift set comprised of 4 models. One of them was the B and R variant of the Junkers Ju-87, the same kit that I'm doing an inbox review on. The other 3 kits, the Spitfire and Hurricane, were those really awful early tooling Spitfire Mark 1/2 and the Hurricane Mark 1 that were released in the 60s. And then the HE111 is a really interesting one because it's actually the Frog kit. So if you get a hold of this model, don't build it, because it will probably appreciate in value quite nicely. But all of the kits inside, probably apart from the Stuka, which I don't think is that bad. I've done a build project on the Spitfire model and it's not great. It has loads of inaccuracies, and that Hurricane is just awful. But the HE111 is probably one of the worst HE111 72nd scale kits on the market. It is really bad. That's the Icons of Aviation kit, which was released in 2010. And then Revell, in that same year, released the Ju-87 G and D in the blue boxings again. And this is almost the image that you get on the recent release, but it is similar, but it's just a wider image, and the aircraft images, the image of the aircraft is smaller in a bigger picture, so you can see more of what's going on the ground. But this kit was released in 2010. It's exactly the same as their original 1975 release from all those years ago, but I bet you Revell don't tell you, do they? Then you've got 2011. They released a model set, a gift set if you like, comprising 3 acrylic paints, some glue and a twin-ended brush. I really like these twin-ended brushes. I think they're made by Humbrol. And you've got a small brush at one end and a slightly bigger brush at the other, and they're really, really good quality. If you have any of these in your brush stash, don't be scared to use them. They're really good. And these paints here, they're not bad either. They're pretty good too. The glue, of course, everybody uses. It's on, people use this generally. It's a good contact adhesive. 2011 there goes through to 2020, and we have the first time issue of this Battle of Britain 80th anniversary gift set. Again, you've got the same 3 aircraft, the Stuka, which is the subject of the build that I've got on this inbox review, the really awful early tooled Spitfire and Hurricane, but you've also got, instead of the HE111, you've got a Ju-88A4, and that kit is it's half decent. It's not terrible, it's not great, but it's sort of half decent. It's on a par with the early tooled Airfix Ju-88. It's not bad. But that was the 80th anniversary, and it's marked new. This is how you tell the difference between the 80th anniversary, the new one, and then they re-released it in 2025 this year without the new markings. It's exactly the same kit, but of course it's 85 years now instead of 80th anniversary. It probably would be a fun set to build. There are 4 kits in it, but it's not cheap. Then in 2025 you've got this kit, and this was released this year. It is exactly the same model that you got in 1975. I believe the price of this is about £13, and I think if they're asking £13 for this kit, I think £9.99 would be a bit better. But if you want to have a look at what you get in the box now out of this release, One of my friends, a guy called Matt's Model Minutes, has just done a review on this kit, and you can see from his review exactly what the quality of the parts are like in this kit, and compared with the quality of the parts that I've got in my box from an early release, they are pretty dire. So even Matt says they're pretty dire. Anyway, we'll just leave you with a nice image there of a JU87. I think that's a B1 again, a nice image, and we'll just pan the camera down and let's have a look at this kit and see what we've actually got here. Yeah. Can I pull that down a little bit more? I should be able to. There we go. The box is actually quite big. There's my hand in the front of it. It's quite a large box. The image I like the image on the box. Model made up and the R variant made up in green there. I quite like that. Again, you can make both versions from this box, which is absolutely true. On the side, you've got a repeat of the images. Gives you an idea what the kits look like. Some information there on the side for the JU87B and R. The back is just plain cardboard. There's some more images there of the kit built up. You can see, yep, you get an engine in this kit, and it's not that bad. It's not super detailed, but it is only 72nd scale, so what do you expect? WH Smith sold this kit in original for 80p, so I don't know, maybe I've got an 81 release of this kit, I'm not sure. But I like the boxing on this. I like the image of the boxing. It's quite nice, isn't it? Right, let's put that to one side. Let's put that over there. Put that over there, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. We'll have a look at the parts after we've gone through the instructions and the decals. And let's just show you what you get in this kit, because I was quite surprised when I opened the box and found out what you've got inside. It's really nice. Let's find the decals so I don't lose them, because I don't want to lose the decals. Let's put those on there. Right. You've got an A4 sheet of paper which comprises the instructions, but this A4 sheet actually opens up into 3 A4s with different information and instructions on them. So it's about 3 times A4 in size total. On the front you've got the information about the Stuka, the B and the R variants, and some specifications there, some stats, and then you've got Revell's really awful colour call out. This one isn't too bad for this kit because there's really only 2 colours apart from the tyres, the propeller, the machine gun at the back, the tail wheel, and these walk strips on the wings, which are in matte black, gunmetal and silver for the wheel hubs. And I think you can paint that forward section of the propeller any colour you like, really, but a lot of them were white. Anyway, open the page, let's have a look, see what you get. In the top of the first page you've got some interesting little hints and tips. This goes back to the early days of Revell, and another company who did this a lot was Frog. If you've got any early tooled versions of Frog kits, they did this as well. And then the kit builds up in 9 parts, I believe. I think it's 9 parts. Yep, 9 parts, but it's really only 7 because part 8 and 9 relate to the R variant and parts 7 and 8 relate to the B variant. Anyway, first of all you build the cockpit up. It's not fantastic by today's standards, but in 1975 that was a detailed cockpit. It even has straps, even though they're not fantastically defined, but it has harness straps in the seat, which is nice. You've also got a nicely, well, not nicely, but it's reasonably detailed Junkers Gemmo 211D engine with the engine mounts, and the propeller sits in the front gearbox section there to enable you to have the propeller to rotate. Section 3, fuselage assembly. You've got separate parts for the grille, bulkhead, instrument panel, and then basically the 2 fuselage halves marry up around all of those. And then section 4, you're building the sub-assembly for the trousers for the main undercarriage legs. Yeah, the wheels will rotate on this kit, which is nice. And then in section 5? Yeah, section 5, you've got the airframe assembly, which incorporates a tailplane, tail struts, canopy, the wings. Yeah, quite self-explanatory. And then you've also got the first real option that you have to look at. This is also the same for the G2 and D5 variants. You've got different holes that you have to open up for the G2 and the D5, and it's no different for the B or the R variant, and it tells you which ones you have to open up, which is nice. I like that. And then you've got section 6, sub-assemblies of the bomb load or the drop tanks for the R variant. And then you go into section 6 here, which is relating, 6 and 7 is relating to the B variant in particular, but basically you've just got a bomb outload with the little bomb. These are 50 kilogram bombs on twin racks and the air brakes that go into place, and you fix the undercarriage, the main undercarriage gear and bomb load out in this section. And then in section 7 they're telling you how to paint the aircraft up. Not a particularly fantastic way of showing you that, but you adhere the radio antenna. There's also a couple of little steps here. Can you see this little step? And there's one here. These are the steps that allow the pilot to get the pilot and crew gunner to get onto the wing and, you know, enter the aircraft's cockpit canopy, and then your propeller assembly and the cowling is fitted in at that point. You don't glue the cowling in place, by the way, because what's the point of putting an engine in there if you're just going to glue the cowling up? Section 8 is basically the R variant options. You can still put these on the R variant, but the R variant you would normally have the drop tanks to extend the range of the aircraft. The air brakes go in at this point as well. Also, a good tip is to paint the underside of the aircraft before you do any of this, and make sure that those decals are put in place under the bomb racks and the air brake assembly. Otherwise you'll have real difficulty putting those squares underneath the wings, which I definitely will be doing. Finishing with the upper surfaces and decal application there, you can see that, and it's the same in section 7 for the B variant. Interesting. I'll show you all about what's going on with that when we get through to the GUMF, but that's the instructions. The instructions on this kit are quite easy to follow, even though the colour callouts are a bit vague. The transfers, however, I have a surprise for you, because the transfers, as you can see, incorporate swash stickers. This is something that was literally eliminated in 1979 when Britain passed, most of Europe actually passed a law where you couldn't use any type of image of the swash sticker on anything that was a toy or could be described as a toy. And also they got rid of all the images of war on the box art, which is why a lot of companies went to putting images of the model made up on their box art rather than images of the aircraft in combat, because they didn't want anything to be led towards images of violence on children's toys. But I do like the fact that they've got swash stickers on here. The instrument panel isn't fabulous, but it will, you know, it'll be all right. Decals, they're quite good quality, and the silvering on the back, it's pretty clear, isn't it? I think those decals will go on really nice. Serial number of the kit, by the way, is H149. But that's basically the decals. Now let's get to showing you the parts. This sprue first. You've got the engine cowling there. It's quite nice. One of these drop tanks is about to fall off, so what I'll do is I'll just take that off, put that over there. But basically there's the wingtip parts. These are different on the D5 G2 variant. Also the grille, the struts for the tailplane. That I think is the machine gun on there. It's quite nicely moulded, isn't it? The little drum feed. Drop tanks, they're quite nicely defined as well, with quite nice surface detail. Yes, and some of it is recessed. Engine mounts there, they go on both sides of the engine. Not terribly detailed, probably not that accurate, but you know, they're better than nothing, aren't they? The little bomblets, racks for the undersides of the wings, they're quite nice, and they're the undercarriage trousers, which you've got shafts inside to give you rotating wheels. Quite nice, I like that. They're quite crisp, aren't they? This is the sprue that you get when with the fuselage halves on, and this sprue in the D5 and G2 variant up here would have another section of parts which would give you the cannon pods for the undersides of the wings of the G2. The second sprue tail plane's quite nicely defined. I quite like the look of that. Quite nice surface detail. They're the air brakes. Got the struts there, internal details. Yeah, it's quite nice. The tyres are quite defined as well. And I like the look of this kit. It's quite nice. The bonds are nice. That's that Jomo 211D engine. I'll tell you what. I mean, the engine goes in to the aircraft that way up with the heads facing down because it was an inverted V12 engine. And I've seen pictures of the 211D and the 211A and the 211B engines, and they're not that bad at all. That reproduction is not that bad. Quite like the look of that. Cockpit floor, bulkhead, instrument panel. Not a lot of detail on that. I don't think I'll be using the instrument panel decal, but I think I might paint that and just put the details on it myself. The small 50-kilogram bombs, the bomb rack for the main bomb, and that's the pilot figure I was talking to you about with these. Yeah, they've got straps in there, not greatly defined, but in 1975 that was detailed. That was a nice touch. Anyway, the wings, wing parts, you've got the underside of the wings on one side here with the full length flaperons, which are nice. The upper surface of the wings, and you can see the surface detail on this kit isn't actually that bad, is it? It's all raised, but you know, what do you expect? It's 1975 tooling, but it's not that bad. The undersides of the wings are quite nicely defined as well, and I think that will paint up lovely. These ridges, interestingly enough, are the location runners for the radiators. The aircraft had twin radiators in the D2 and G5 variant, so I'm going to have to sand them down, completely sand them down, because they were not. The radiator and oil coolers were under the chin on the fuselage, not on the wings like they were on the D5 variant. The fuselage, let's put the fuselage, one of them, in there because you don't need to see all of them. This one is probably the more important fuselage half. This has the tail wheel in place as well, quite nice. Surface detail for the rudder, the aircraft. The Stuka was actually all metal. All the surfaces were metal, and this chin radiator also incorporated the oil cooler as well, but with the bigger engine that went into the D5. The D series, they had to take the radiators out of this and make the oil cooler a lot bigger and put the radiators under the wings, where I was showing you the location runners for that. And you don't get the parts for the radiators in this kit, but you do get them in the D5 and G2 variant. Nicely casted propeller there. I like the look of that. It's quite nice. And I also like the look of this. This is the canopy. Now, by modern standards, that's not great, but by 1975 standards, it's clear, it's quite nicely cast. It's a bit heavy set framed, but it'll paint up nice. And it's quite a nice piece of work. I quite like that. So that should go in all right as well. So what I want to do quickly now is, that's all the parts looked at. I just want to put these 3 parts back in this little protected bag that I use. I use these protected bags quite a bit because it keeps the parts nice and scratch free, and I always know where the parts are when I need them. Just pop them back into there, and there we go. And then we put this box back on here, and then we'll have a read of the Gumph, so I can close this video down. Let's give you something to read, something to look at rather, whilst I read this out. The kit we're doing an inbox review on today is the Revell Junkers Ju87 B2 and R2. I know it only says B and R, but they are actually B2 and R2s. The release date of the kit originally was 1976, but it was based on the 75 release of the D5/G2 Stuka. The kit serial number is H149 and it's scaled in 1/72nd scale. Now there are decals in the box for two variants. The first is of Ju87B2 marked A5-L, and that's from Stuka Geschwader 3 Fliegerkorps 10, based in Sicily in 1940. This is why the aircraft is actually desert camo patterned, and that's the that's the B2 variant, the green one. The desert color. Oh god, this is really complicated. The Fliegerkorps 10 model based in Sicily is in desert camo pattern, even though it's a B2, because in 1941, when Germany realised they had to intercede on behalf of the Italians in the North African campaign, they realised that they needed longer range aircraft, but at first they sent B2s to Sicily. And that's where they found out really that they had issues with range, because the B2s only really had a couple of minutes over to drop their bombs and get back home. The second version was the Ju-87R2, which is a long range version, serial numbered 6GGR from Stuga 1 Fliegerkorps 8, based in Norway in 1940. And these were the aircraft that were first used for the long range variants, and the R2, and they were painted green. The kit itself has 57 parts on 4 green plastic sprues and 1 part on 1 transparent plastic sprue, making 58 parts in total. Dimensions of the kit are approximately 6 inches long by 8 inches in span, and it should sit 1.5 inches high on its undercarriage. Now the options and costs are quite a few, but there are some interesting variants of kits out there. The standalone kits are as follows. AMG, which is Arsenal Model Group, they have released a kit this year of the Ju-87A. No prices available for that because I don't think it's actually on general release yet. But Academy did 2 releases of their own kits. They did a Ju-87B2 for about £8 to £14, and a Ju-87G1, a G2 and a JS2 in separate boxings for anything between £7 and £31. Airfix had the original 1957 tool of the Ju-87B. This can be purchased for anything between £6.50 and £70. They also did a famous aircraft set number 1, which comprised of a Ju-87B, a Fokker DR-1 triplane, a Lockheed P-38J Lightning, a Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6, a Mikoyan Gurevich MiG-15 Faggot, and a Saunders Roe SR-53. No prices available for this, but they were limited edition, and if you can get a hold of one, I'll bet you wouldn't be able to get one for less than 200 quid. Airfix also did a retool of the Ju-87B2. This was a Series 2 kit when it came out in 1978, and is available now for anything between £13 and £21. But they also did in the same year a Series 3 version of this kit based on the Series 2 model, but had additional parts to build a long-range R version. These are available for anything between £16 and £37. Airfix also did a Junkers Ju-87B1, a B2 and an R2 release, new tools in 2015, and these are available for anything between 10 and 23 quid. They are available on general release in your model shops, and you can get it off the Airfix website. Airfix also produced in the new tool Ju-87R2 with a new tool Gladiator Mark 1 dogfight double set. This is about £35. Aviastend did a Ju-87B vac form kit. No prices available for that. Bilek did a Ju-87B2 and R2 for about £14 to £16. Checkmaster Resin did a Ju-87A1, which is a resin cast kit. It's quite dear at about £34. Flugzeug did a Ju-87A, no prices available on that. Fujimi did a couple of boxings, one of a Ju-87B, one of an R. They're available for between £15 and £20. And the Ju-87D1, D5, G1 or G2 are available for anything between £13 and £25. Frog released the JU87G for about £13 to £23, and they also did a dogfight double set of the Stuka with a Hurricane Mark II-C. No prices available for that, but you'd probably be looking at over 50 for that one. Hella did a quite nice JU87B one for about £13 to £26. They also did a Battelle de France set of the JU87B1, a Bloch 174 and a De Whiting D520C. No pricings available for that, but again it'll probably be dear because it was a limited release. Hi-Tech did a JU87A multimedia kit. This comprises white metal, vac form parts and resin cast. No prices available on that. Hobby Boss did a JU87D3 and G1 for about £10 to £16. Idea did a JU87G, no prices available on that. Iteleri did a number of boxings, one of a JU87B, another of a B2, and another of a B2/R2. They're available between anything between £11 and £17. Iteleri also released a D5 and a G2 variant of the JU87, separate boxings for £10 to £18. A company called Mavi, M-A-V-I, they did several releases of a JU87A, which was a vac form kit, white metal and resin multimedia model for I've got no details of pricing, but they also released a vac form kit of the B variant of the JU87 Stuka. No pricings available on that either. Matchbox's D3/G1 was £20 to £30. Otaki did a JU87B for £25 to £32. Polysteel did a JU87B for about £20 to £25. Revell's original release of the JU87B and R is £16 to £20, and Revell's original release of the D5 and G2 was £13 to £23. Revell also did a Battle of Britain set. This was the one comprising with the Frog HE111H, that's about £45. And they also did a Battle of Britain gift set. This is the kit that substituted the HE111 for a JU88A1, and that kit is available for anything between £30 and £40. Special Hobby did the last standalone variant of the JU87A, and that's quite expensive at £57. Now then, a number of these kits have been reboxed. Airfix kits were reboxed by Airfix Corporation of America and Airfix Lodella. No pricings available on that, but the Corporation of America kit was the original 57 release, and the Lodella kit was the 1978 Series 3 release. Astro Kit did a Reebox Fujimi kit of the JU87B, that retails for £20. Doyusha did a Reeboxed Academy kit of the G1 for about £12 to £16. Frog Hasegawa reboxed the Frog kit of the G variant for £10 to £20. Hella Humbrol reboxed the Hella kit of the JU87B1 for about £12 to £15. Hella Rico also reboxed the Hella kit of the B1 for about £10 to £20. £15. Hobby Boss 2000 reboxed the Academy kit of the D1, the D3N, the D7 and G2, all in separate boxings for anything between £10 and £20. Hobbycraft reboxed the Idea kit of the JU87G for about, got no pricings on any of these. Modelist reboxed the Academy kit of a G1. MPC reboxed the JU87B Airfix 57 tool and the Airfix 78 tool. No pricings available on any of these. And MPC Coca-Cola reboxed the Airfix kit 1957. Again, no pricings on that. MPM Productions reboxed the JU87A from Flugzeug for £28, and Plasti reboxed the 57 Airfix kit of the B variant of the JU87. No pricings available on that. Premium Hobbies did a G2 variant of the Academy kit for £25 to £32. Revell reboxed the Italeri kit of the B2 and R2 JU87 for £24. Revell Seiji, they did a rebox of the Revell original kit of the B and R for £10. Revell Seiji also reboxed the G2, no pricings available. Revell Congost reboxed the Revell kit of the G2, the D and G variants for no pricings available. Revell Great Britain reboxed the original B and R Revell kit for £21. They also reboxed the G2 Revell kit from Revell Great Britain, no pricings available for that. The Revell Coca-Cola JU87B and R and Kikola Ju87D5 G2, no pricings available for those. And Lodella also produce the B2 and R2, no pricings available for that. And the D5 and G2, no pricings available for those. Revell New Zealand's boxing of the Revell D5 and G2, no pricings available for those. Special Hobby did a J87 D3, D5 and N variant, which is a reboxed Academy kit for £12 to £20. Tamiya reboxed the Atalieri kits of the B2 and R2 for about £9 to £15, and Tamiya also reboxed the G2 Atalieri kit for £9. Testers reboxed the Hella kit of the B2 for £16, and they also reboxed the Fujimi kit as Testers Fujimi of the G2 for £15. UPC reboxed the Frog kit marked as an A, but it's actually a Ju87. I think it's a vac form kit of the G2, but it's really, as I said, it's a B variant for £10 to £20. Sorry, it's marked as a B, but it's actually a G2 variant for £10 to £20. And Zvezda reboxed the Atalieri kit as a B2 for £13 to £16. Conclusions. This kit was the second tooling of the Junkers Ju87 model from Revell. It had new parts added to the Ju87 D3 and G2 Stuka tooled in 1974 to produce the Ju87 B2 and R2 in 1976. By 1970 standards, it had reasonable interior detail but no pilots. It did have a Junkers Gemmo 211D engine inside the forward fuselage under the engine cowling, which is a pleasant surprise. Optional parts are supplied for either the B2 or R2 variant, and it seems to have quite nice surface detail with slightly raised panel lines and a nicely framed canopy. I find it funny that the original 1975 release of the Ju87 D5/G2 kit is still available in the Revell catalogue, and it's on sale for £12.95. I hope this video has been of some use. If you have any queries or questions, please get back to me in the comments and I'll try and get back to you as quickly as possible. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.